Picture this. You're driving home from a long day's work, tired but calm, when flashing red and blue lights suddenly fill your rearview mirror. You pull over, confused but compliant. Minutes later, you're handcuffed on the side of the road, not because of what you did, but because of what someone put in your car. Now imagine this happening to the wrong woman. A woman far more powerful than the corrupt officer ever realized. Camille Johnson was not the kind of woman who sought the spotlight. She carried herself with quiet authority, her tailored navy suit and calm demeanor hiding a fire forged over decades of service. As the newly appointed director of the DEA, she had spent her life climbing through walls others thought impossible. She had been underestimated, overlooked, doubted, both for being a black woman and for daring to step into a man's world. But through discipline, brilliance, and unshakable will, she had risen. It was late one evening when Camille left a meeting downtown and began her drive home. The city was quiet, the hum of her car the only sound in the still night. She was thinking of the cases waiting on her desk, the communities ravaged by drugs, the young lives she had promised to protect. Then, the sirens. A patrol car pulled up behind her, lights blazing. She frowned. She hadn't been speeding. Still, she pulled to the side, rolled down her window, and rested her hands visibly on the wheel. Years in law enforcement had taught her how dangerous encounters like this could be, even for the innocent. The officer approached, his face hidden beneath the brim of his cap. His tone was sharp, too sharp. License and registration. Camille complied. Her voice was steady, polite. "May I ask what this is about, officer?" No questions. Step out of the vehicle. Something was off. His eyes darted, not toward her papers, but toward the interior of her car. She had seen that look before, in criminal staging setups, in suspects cornered by their own lies. A knot tightened in her stomach. She stepped out slowly, heels clicking against the asphalt. And then she saw it. The officer leaned into her car for a moment, his hand slipping something under the passenger seat. He straightened quickly, as if nothing had happened. Seconds later, his voice rang out. Well, what do we have here?" He reached under the seat and pulled out a small bag of white powder, holding it up like a trophy. Camille's heart pounded. She knew the game. He was planting evidence. The officer's smirk widened. "Looks like you're under arrest for possession." Her wrists were forced behind her, cold metal biting into her skin. To any bystander, she was just another black woman cuffed on the side of the road, another statistic. But the officer had no idea who he had just put his hands on. Camille stayed silent. Not because she was afraid, but because she knew this story wasn't over. The ride to the precinct was quiet. Camille sat in the back of the squad car, wrists bound, gaze fixed on the city lights rushing past. She thought of the irony. How many innocent people had sat where she was sitting, powerless against the word of an officer? She had dedicated her career to cleaning corruption, yet here it was, so close she could feel its weight on her skin. At the station, the officer paraded her in, eager to show off his catch. He placed the bag of powder on the evidence table, speaking loudly for everyone to hear. "Found it in her car. Easy collar." Camille said nothing. She waited. The duty sergeant raised an eyebrow, glancing between Camille and the officer. Something about her posture didn't fit the profile of a criminal. Even in handcuffs, she radiated authority. "Name?" the sergeant asked. Camille finally spoke. Her voice was calm, steady, cutting through the air like a blade. "Camille Johnson, Director of the Drug Enforcement Administration." The room froze. The officer's smirk vanished, his face draining of color. The sergeant blinked, stunned. "Director Johnson. As in, the director?" Camille nodded once, eyes never leaving the crooked cop. "Yes. And I suggest you check the dashcam before you proceed any further." Panic flickered in the officer's eyes. He stammered. "This is a mistake." But it was too late. Within minutes, the footage was pulled. The video showed everything. Him leaning into her car, his hands slipping under the seat. The evidence spoke louder than his words ever could. The sergeant's expression hardened. "Remove her cuffs. Now." As the metal fell from her wrists, Camille straightened her suit jacket and faced the officer. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "You thought you could take away my freedom. But you've just given me more reason to take away your badge." Her words were ice, but her eyes burned with fire. The officer was led away in cuffs. The same ones he had once so carelessly slapped on her wrists. Justice had turned. Days later, the story broke nationwide. The headlines read, "Corrupt officer arrested after planting evidence. Victim was DEA director." But Camille didn't celebrate his downfall. For her, the true victory was shining a light on a system too often abused. At her next press conference, she stood before the cameras, her voice strong and unwavering. This wasn't just about me. This was about every person who never got the chance to prove their innocence. We must do better. We will do better.